Hi, welcome to the February 2018 Houston Clutter Coaching Meetup Group. I'm Gayle Goddard and I'm the Clutter Fairy, and we're going to talk about someone else's problems, clutters in relationship. Say hi, everybody.
Hi.
Yay. Okay, so our topic tonight comes from Tony, I hope I'm going to say your name right, Tony Citarella, who is living with a husband who won't let go of anything, an adult daughter and some of her things, and the leftover things of her mother's who has gone to assisted living. So she was talking about, she's in the house with several people and several people's stuff and her mother's inherited stuff, and she wanted us to talk about living with people with other people's clutter. And so that's where we're going to start, talking about living with other people's clutter. Okay, so if you think about it, any relationship's clutter profile is one of four options. Either you're more organized and the other person is less organized, or the other way around, they're more organized and you're less organized, or you're both disorganized, or you're both organized, which I actually think doesn't exist in nature. I think it's just a theoretical possibility. I don't know anybody where both people is super organized. So I suppose it exists, and if you're there and you're watching the video, my apologies for not believing in you. But I guess I just don't run into a lot of you in my line of work. Let me just say that. So there's always mitigating factors that contribute as well. So I'm going to run a little list here. So this is going to be things that add, in addition to your relationship being imbalanced about everybody comes to clutter at a different level, then there's other factors that come into play, like we have pets in the house, that creates extra clutter. We have kids, or we have lots of kids. We have tenants in the house. We're renovating the house. That's like the definition of clutter chaos, right? Is when you start renovating some part of the house. We just moved. We both have stressful jobs. We work long hours. I hear that a lot. Like, I don't have time to deal with this because I'm working, 12 hours a day and there's no time left over for me to do anything in the house. We have physical incapacities or illnesses. We have mental incapacities or illnesses, like maybe you're ADHD, or maybe you are sliding into dementia or Alzheimer. You're losing some of your memory because as we age, we get a little bit less, focused and sharp. And maybe that's contributing to your clutter as well. A big one is we just lost a family member, right? So these are all types of stress that impact how much clutter is happening in the house and what you have to deal with. And if you take one of those relationships and you add some of these stressors, you know what's going to happen, right? Somebody's going to get upset and you're fighting about clutter all the time. Everybody fights about clutter. The longer you're together, the more this argument becomes a tape. Somebody says, "Oh my gosh, the house is a wreck. We have to clean it up." Or, "Why do you have to keep all this stuff? It's a wreck. It's total clutter. What is it? What is the purpose of all this stuff?" And somebody else starts going, "Oh, get away from my stuff. Don't touch my stuff. You can't have my stuff. Leave it alone." And the argument happens over and over and over again because there's always somebody that gets upset and always somebody that's defending the position, and you just replay that argument over and over. And nobody really learns any new lines. Like, they don't change the conversation at all. They just say, "The house is a wreck," and the other person says, "Leave my stuff alone," and that's the fight, right? And you just have it over and over again. So it's really hard to interrupt that pattern after a long time of doing it. I would rather that you learn to talk from a place of support and love about it so that hopefully you can come to some resolution. So let's talk about the partners who are not on the same page. We're all generally not on the same page about clutter. Any relationship, if you're super lucky, you're about the same. But that doesn't happen very often. And generally there's some difference between who gets upset first, who has less of a threshold, right? So if you imagine that you are the more organized person, however far apart you guys are, if you're the more organized person, that means that you're going to reach your threshold of annoyance first, every time, all the time. The other person who is less organized than you, their threshold of chaos is higher, so they can deal with more than you can. So you're always the one in the relationship that gets annoyed first, and then they're always looking at you like, What's your problem? It doesn't look that bad. I'm looking around, it doesn't look like bad. Well, why are you annoyed? So then they're always annoyed that you're annoyed. And it means that the person that is the more organized of the two is always the bad guy. Because you get annoyed first and you start the fight first. You start going, I need you to fix this. I need you to, like, this is making me crazy. I need you to help me clean, and I need you to pick up and do this differently, and why? And the other person's going, what the hell? It's not a big deal. Like, what is your problem? Stop freaking out. And you guys have that disconnect forever in your relationship. So the only way to negotiate that is to come to some compromise about how you're going to deal with the clutter. And this requires some negotiation. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. La, la, la. Oh, I made this joke about DEF CON 2. That the person who is more organized always gets to DEF CON 2 and then they start yelling. And the other person's still at DEF CON 5 going, hey, I'm chill. What's wrong with you, right? That person that's already annoyed is always the bad guy and is always the one that's trying to start the chaos, start the argument, start the movement, and the other person's being dragged along against their will, basically. So generally, the partners have to agree. Both of you guys have to agree. Whoever this is, and I'm speaking in terms of it could be a couple, so a husband and wife typically, but it could also be two college roommates, a brother and a sister, a parent and a child that are still living together. It can be any two people that are trying to cohabitate in a house that need to do this negotiation in a respectful way. So generally, first, everybody has to agree that they want a better outcome, right? Like, yes, we don't want to be fighting all the time. Yes, we don't want somebody to be angry and somebody to be annoyed all the time. We want a better outcome than that. And so, given that everybody wants a better outcome, everybody also has to agree that we're going to compromise. We're going to try to do some kind of compromise about it. And so the example I have right off the bat is one of my organizer friends, hi Leanna. Leanna was talking about her husband. So she's a professional organizer like I am. So clearly she wants it all really organized. And her husband is not that person. And so he comes home and he takes off his clothes in the bedroom, and then the clothes end up on the floor. And like 3 steps away, inside the closet, is the hamper where the clothes are supposed to go. And so the professional organizer says, honey, can you not just walk the 3 more steps into the closet to put the clothes in the hamper? And he's like, nope, can't do that, nope. So she's annoyed, he's annoyed, not happening. So being the professional that she is, she thought, okay, let me propose some options to him. And she said, how about, if that's a no, if you're not willing to do what I would like you to do, how about we put a basket over here next to where, so it's in the bedroom, but it's next to where he gets undressed. So he at least can throw the clothes in the basket instead of on the floor in a pile. So does she want to have a basket in her bedroom with clothes in it? No. But is that a better solution than having the pile on the floor? Yes. So she got to that compromise, and she loves her husband, and now we're, that's something he's willing to do, that's something she's willing to live with, and we have a compromise. And that's exactly what you're aiming for. She hoped for the best, but she got the middle ground, because he was like, yeah, not going in the closet to put the clothes in, I'm sorry. And I know a lot of people that are like that. There's something about they're coming home from work and their ritual is this, and those extra 3 steps feel like an impossible thing somehow. And so, okay, let's work with where you're coming from. If where you're coming from is if it has to be here, then let's make this so that I don't want to snatch myself bald while you throw the clothes on the floor, right? So it was very successful because she recognized a very specific problem, and she talked to him about not your mess, you make me crazy, why are you such a wreck? But she said the clothes on the floor when you come home at night make me crazy. And so I would prefer that you go in there, but if you're not willing to do that, then here's an alternate option. And so she was very specific about, like, not the whole bedroom, not anything else on the table. It was just this one topic about his clothes when he came home. And she had options for him, and he was willing to comply, and they solved that one problem, which brought her down from DEF CON 2, right? Like, it made it calmer for her so that she wasn't annoyed every time she went in the bedroom. my original clients lived with this constant frustration to the point that it had really escalated, and the husband was at DEFCON 1 all the time. Like, he was so aggravated beyond the pale. He was so aggravated. And that was why she decided to call me and have me come and help her work. And it was a big leap for her to agree to let somebody come and work with her. It wasn't really something she wanted to do. She was not looking around the house and going, the house is making me crazy. The husband was looking around the house and going, this is making me crazy. And she made a conscious choice. I want my husband to be happy in his home. And clearly, despite the fact that it doesn't bother me, it bothers him. And so my compromise is that I'm going to work on this stuff even though I don't really care. Like, it doesn't really bother me at all. But it started a process where, do they live in a Martha Stewart home? Martha Stewart, right? Mm-hmm. Do we live in a Martha Stewart home? No. Their house has never been a Martha Stewart home, never going to be a Martha Stewart home. But they dial it back regularly enough that he is not walking around gritting his teeth and, you know, with his claws out all the time because he's so frustrated. And it's been a huge improvement for them, I think, to all this time later, she's still willing to let me come and work. And then he feels like there's movement and there's attention, and he doesn't even have to have it be perfect. He just needs to dial it back some, and we dial it back and he's chill again. And so it's been a really successful compromise that she did for the express purpose of not getting a divorce. I feel like it was very important to handle because he was really, really annoyed. I have to mention that some people, and I think this is more a wife thing than a husband thing. I think husbands know better, but wives sometimes think, and they do this with their small children as well, wives tend to think that if they're annoyed by clutter, that they have permission to throw out other people's stuff. So they go into the house and they're like, oh, this is, you know, this stuff of my husband's. He went out of town and I threw away a whole bunch of stuff. And, you know, surprise, surprise, the husband comes back and goes ballistic because you have gone in and gotten rid of his stuff without permission. And sometimes, you know, they're always surprised by that. Like, wow, I got rid of the clutter. I thought he'd be happy. Well, no, because it wasn't clutter to him. It was his stuff. So moms do that, and they start with little kids. Like when your kid is an infant, you sort their clothes and you sort their toys and you give things away as they change in sizes, and you're the one constantly giving stuff away. And then they get to a point where they're like, they're aware that it's their stuff. And then it starts being a violation that you're throwing their stuff away while they're at school or they're at daycare or they're with grandma, right? Like, you have to be very careful when they become aware of ownership, then your ability to throw it away without permission is now complete. Like, you've lost your window to do it. When they're an infant, it's okay, but what age would you say that was, like 2-ish?
Oh no, older.
Older than that?
Yeah, because they wouldn't notice.
3 or 4 maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, you can't just go into the room while they're off doing something else and start packing stuff up and move it away. And it's a violation of everybody's autonomy and your ownership. Your private stuff is not for someone else to judge, right? And I think that I try to draw this analogy. If you go into the closet and you imagine that someone comes with you, the husband, your mother, your best friend, and just goes through your closet and starts pulling out all the clothes they think you don't need, all the shoes and purses they think you don't need, and they just take it out and go off with it and donate it away. If someone did that while you were there or while you were out of the house and you came home, your head would explode, right? Like, you would burn the house down because they came and took all your stuff away, right? It's exactly the same. And I remember having this conversation with someone who was like, well, you know, I guess it's not really clutter to him, is it? Like, it had never dawned on her that just because she thought it was clutter, it wasn't clutter to him. And it wasn't, you know, it was important to him. It was his hobby. It was his interest. And because she wasn't interested in it, she had just determined that it was, you know, expendable. It's like, no. It's not really true. So you have to be really respectful of each other's stuff. and ask permission, and you govern your own things and let someone else govern theirs. And in some relationships, that's a hardship. The other person doesn't want to give up anything. It's hard to manage. But I also find that when one person in a house that's sort of overwhelming starts to do organizing and corralling and managing their things, and their areas where they work, where they sleep, their bedside table, their part of the bathroom starts to look nice, the other person gets motivated to do the same. So it's organizing by example, right? The best you can do is organize by example, or negotiate a compromise about something between you that's really making you insane. Okay? There are people that have classes of clutter that annoy them more than others. And what I mean by that is, maybe the fact that the closet is overstuffed is okay, but they don't like piles of paper everywhere. I have a perfect example of a client who I worked with for a couple of years, and she is married and has 3 small kids. And as you can imagine, with 3 small children, the house is crazy and busy. And we were working there one day, and it was early on when we first started, and her husband was there. And I asked him, if you could have anything fixed in the house, what would make you the most comfortable? What would you like to be fixed? What do you want us to work on? Because I'd had this conversation with her already, and he went walking by, and so I enrolled him in the conversation and said, what would make you happy? And he said, I want the chairs to be lined up with the dining table. And I looked at him and I thought, I'm looking around the house, and it's like explosion in the house, like little kid chaos everywhere, counters covered with dishes and food, there's stuff all over the couch and the chairs and the floor. It's like a complete bomb went off. And the thing that was at the top of his list was the chairs were not lined up with the edge of the table, and that annoyed him every single day. And I was like, okay, we'll take care of that. And he went away, and I was like, oh my God, you have the easiest fix ever. All you have to do before he comes home is go straighten the chairs, and it'll be fine. And so I've been telling this story for a couple of years now, and I was just at her house earlier this month, and he was at home working. And we were in the middle of the appointment. There was stuff all over. We had paper. We were sorting paper out, and there was stuff all over the floor. We had piles of donations going out. It was in the middle of the strategy of working on the piles. And he went walking through the room, and he went across by the table and went out. And then when he came back, he got 2 steps in front of the table, and he stopped and he turned and he straightened the chairs, and he kept on going. I was like, there you go. It's 2 years later. He still wants the chairs lined up with the table. He doesn't care about the rest of the mess, but he was willing to stop and put the chairs in line with the table. Like, that is such an engineer guy, right? That was totally him. But it's a perfect example of, there's classes of clutter that make you more organized, more annoyed than others, right? And so concentrating on the ones that make you the most annoyed that's a perfect place to negotiate. There's things that you can let slide that your partner finds insanely aggravating, and vice versa. And so when you're having those conversations about what's the one thing that if I do this, it'll make you more comfortable. For my original clients, it was boxes. They're both internet shoppers. They don't go to any stores hardly at all. Everything comes to the house, and there's this buildup of cardboard boxes. And that makes him really annoyed. So we spend a lot of our time beating back the boxes with a stick. I'm flattening boxes and taking them out to put in the recycling, because that makes him feel better. And it's the super easy one. If we went and organized in her closet, he would not feel any relief at all. So it's important to ask each other, what's your top 5 most annoying things? What are the 5 things that if I fixed would make you feel better and more comfortable about being here? And come up with solutions and options that are tailored to those specific things. And clearly you have to have that conversation. Okay, I want you to do this. Well, I'm not willing to do that. Well, how about if you do this instead? Go back and forth until you come up with a solution that makes you okay and that person is willing to do. And get used to doing those things, get used to complying with the new path, and then see how much the stress level goes down in the house. He literally did not even see anything except the chairs. And we had pulled the chairs out. We'd been sitting in them like 5 minutes before because we were sorting paper. Like we were not done sorting the paper. After he left the room, I had to pull it back out and sit down. But that was the only thing that he cared about in the room. And if that's a super easy thing to fix. It may surprise you that the mail on the coffee table doesn't bother you at all, but it makes your partner want to shoot you with a gun, right? You don't know what it is. So ask those questions and find out, what can I fix to make this work better for both of us? Okay, turn the page. The keys to doing this successfully is to talk about some very concrete examples of things you want fixed. So as opposed to saying the house is a wreck, the bedroom is a wreck, why do you keep all this stuff? Which is really not a place that you can negotiate from. It's like, you're making a character judgment when you say the house is a wreck. Why are you like this? Why is this house so terrible? You can't really start from that point of view. So you want to pick something very, very concrete and talk about a solution for that to solve that problem. You want to do it in a very patient and polite and non-judgmental way, as I'm sure the therapist will back me up on, right? You can't be judgy. And this is the hardest part. When you've been having that fight, this is a wreck, what's your problem? This is a wreck, what's your problem? When you've been having that fight for a decade or 2 decades, it's really hard to restart that conversation in a very non-judgmental, polite way. But you need to make the effort because it's likely that you have a little trigger hot button already about it. And if you say certain words, wreck, house, clutter, the tape starts playing in your head and like everybody's already mad before they've even started talking. So you want to figure out a way to have that conversation in a very neutral, non-judgmental way, be super patient with each other so that you're not just going back into your fight again. You really want to solve this problem. And if everybody comes to the table agreeing that, gee, we'd rather have a different outcome than trying to kill each other at the end of this conversation, let's be non-judgy about it. Ask for what you want up front. And be willing to compromise at accept option 2 or option 3 or option 4. And this happens a lot when I go and work with clients. I'm looking at a problem and, oh, well, okay, so one solution for this is we can go do this over here. And I get this look like, okay, so that one doesn't work for you. How about if we do this and this and this? So I don't have any investment in the solution most of the time. And I can usually come up with 2 or 3. Well, if you don't want to do it this way, could you do it that way? And I just go down the list until I get oh, that works. That one, I'm okay with that. Great, let's do that one. So you want to come to the table with, if all things were perfect, I'd like to do it this way. But if you can't do that one, shoot for the moon. Maybe they can go for it. But if that won't come to pass, then you can have option 2 and version 3 and version 4 and let them participate in modifying your solutions until it's one that they're willing to do, right? Have these conversations before you're annoyed so you can be constructive instead of attacking somebody. I know it's hard, but I think it's part of the strategy to manage to do it while you're not in the middle of the fight. You want to let the fight go by and be calm, and then make a plan to have this conversation later when it's not so in your face and distressing. Respect the other person's boundaries. We all get to make decisions about our own stuff, and no more secret removal when the person is out of town. This is bad, bad, bad. Sometimes people they call people to come pick stuff up. They have furniture disappear while somebody's gone. It's like, wow, do you want to be alive when this person comes home? Like, you're going to be in big trouble. It's a hard concept, all things in the marriage, particularly, all things are ours. Except, no, not really. It's not. The kids are both yours, but beyond that, all that stuff, everybody thinks they each own some things in there, and you better be respecting those boundaries. One last comment about it. If you are diagnosed as having hoarding syndrome, if one of you is diagnosed as having hoarding syndrome, so you're actually living with somebody who has hoarding syndrome, then they're not going to be able to go through this process and make these decisions about managing the stuff in the same way as somebody who's neurotypical about it. So you really need therapeutic intervention to support somebody to do that. that person is dealing with a different brain function and brain process about it, and they need somebody who's trained to help them go through this process, deal with what comes up for them as they do it. And it's possible to have help and make movement, but they need professional support, and an organizer is an insufficient resource, basically. I can help with part of it, but I can't help with all of the emotional things that happen for somebody that's dealing with hoarding syndrome. So seek support that is appropriate, and if you're the person living with the person that's hoarding, the best you may be able to do is organize your parts, organize your stuff, and create some zones that are basically no-fly zones for the person. And I've heard other people say, like, you know, this is my room and you can't come in it, like you're not allowed to put anything in this room. So that they have some, if you're not the person with hoarding, you have some place to go that is completely under your control and they can't add to. Having those kind of boundaries will allow you to live with somebody that's dealing with hoarding and trying to cope, or not trying to cope, as the case may be. We all love the people that we get in relationships with, and sometimes it comes with a challenge. And if that's your challenge, then get therapy for you and get therapy for them. And don't try to do it yourself. Let the person that knows what they're doing talk to your spouse about it. Okay. It can be done. So I hope this gives you some clues about how to negotiate with your partner. And if you guys have any questions you want to ask me, now's the time.
Covering it all.
Oh, good. That's good. I'm glad to hear
It
it.
just makes me glad I live by myself.
You're glad you live by yourself. Well, there is only you to negotiate in that point. That's correct. And you know, sometimes I have that argument with myself. Like I'm standing in my closet going, man, I really need to get rid of some stuff. Oh, okay, I'll deal with that later. Like, we all have that moment. Yes, ma'am.
If I could share something,
Of course.
I haven't been here in a while.
Yes.
I'm widowed, and after my husband died, I shopped as kind of a hobby, and it became an addiction after he died.
Yeah, I'm sure it was triggered by that grief, right?
It was.
And shock and...
And I have a large home, and I was living by myself, and I filled it to the gill, you know?
With stuff.
Yeah.
And that's a typical response to grief, I have to say. That is a very typical response to grief.
Yeah, so that's how it manifested itself. And so, past year and a half, I've been in a really good relationship.
Yay!
And, he's more of a minimalist, and I'm more of a maximalist.
Right? Minimal, maximal. So your threshold is way up here and his is way down here.
Yeah. What's interesting is that my last relationship after my husband died, he couldn't deal with the clutter, and he wasn't really supportive, and so I kind of escaped it and spent time at his place, and so I didn't really worry about it. But my boyfriend now, we're talking about moving in, getting engaged, building our lives together, and he's been really supportive, so he's had a real different approach. And he hasn't been judgmental, even though it bothers him. He understands how it happened, and
what's happening,
invested
right?
in the relationship and wants to help with this. And he's like, I want to move in, and we need to create space for that. And also, he has 2 kids that come and stay with us.
Need to come
sometimes.
over and visit and hang out.
So not only carving out space for him, but also the kids. But he's really been supportive, and so some areas, like, I'm able to delegate. Like, he makes most of the meals, so like the kitchen, I let him organize that, and because he was more invested in that, that was easier for me to step back. And then he organized things, but he let me have final say before we threw away things or donated things or gave things away. And
So he made a first
similar with
pass
the
and made
garage.
choices,
And
then
kinda
he
similar
let you
with the
vet
garage.
them.
Yes.
And then the
And that
garage.
seemed to be a really good system for us. And so
Cool.
other parts of the house, that seems to be working. But now we're kind of saddled with like the master bedroom and bathroom. So they're 2 big closets in the master bedroom, and I have them all filled, and he's like, I understand I'm gonna have the smaller one, but I need the smaller closet, you know?
Right.
And so I'm gonna have to take everything out of it, and so now that seems kind of paralyzing. So one of my best friends and my mom, they've offered to help. His lease is up in a few months, and the plan is to move in at that time.
Yeah.
So
So you're sort of facing the gauntlet now.
yeah, because we've done some things to get, like, downstairs looks pretty nice. It's upstairs where the bedrooms are, where it's bad. It's bad. Because I've kind of put those things off. So like my personal things, clothes and shoes and handbags and jewelry and all of that, there's more of a, for me, an investment attachment. So that's harder for me to make a decision about those things.
So is this is the house that you lived in with your husband that died?
No, I bought it after he passed away.
Oh, okay. But the bedroom is a very personal space, right? Like that's sort of the ultimate sanctuary space.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were sort of building, protection for yourself in there, it's hard.
It's like the worst.
Yeah, right.
I have bags and bags and bags and bags of like I would go shopping with my mom or one of my friends or even by myself.
Right.
And I was really happy and blissful when I was shopping. And I really liked the things that I was getting. I liked them better than the things I already had. So it hasn't caused financial problems, it's just caused clutter problems.
Right.
And I haven't devoted the time to purging old things to make room for the newer things that typically I like better. And so I have all these boxes and bags and things because I don't have places in the closet to put them.
Yeah.
And then
And you gotta empty a
I
closet.
just stop and I just feel overwhelmed.
So I think that the approach to take with that is to go into the closet that you need to empty and go through, and don't think of it as I have to get everything out of here. Go through and pull all the stuff out that's easy and see how much that is and let it go. And then go back for another round and see if there's more that you can pull out and let it go. And then there'll still be stuff in that closet. Then go into the big one, the larger one that you're going to keep, and do the same thing. Look for the low-hanging fruit.
Or like a section at a time, or an
Yeah,
area
I
at a
mean,
time.
basically, because you want to make room in the large closet to take things out of the small closet and move them over, and take things out of the bags and put them in, which means that you have to get rid of 40%. And so I'm just
There's 6 closets in
guessing.
the house, and I'm using all of them. Like his daughter stays in the guest bedroom, and like that closet is just dresses, and I just don't know. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, but
I'm
it's-
upset at myself for allowing it to get to this point, but
Yeah.
it is what it is, and I understand. Don't shop anywhere like I used to, so
Right,
I've
right,
kind of,
right.
I haven't completely stopped it, but I'm
But
shopping more normally.
yeah,
you
you're
know.
back, you're off of the
But now it's like, okay,
soothing shopping.
I have to do something with these things at this point. I have to make a decision. I've
Well,
been
and
able to put it off.
right. But now, and what's cool about this is, I know it doesn't feel cool. What's cool about this is you have a deadline and an impetus, right? Like the ultimate goal here, which has never been true until now, is that if you get the clothes moved around, you get to have a new relationship that's fabulous for you. Like you get this bonus win at the end, is that this great guy is moving in and you like living with him and you're talking about this life. And so you're not just doing it for you now, you're doing it for the reward of he's moving in, and won't that be fabulous?
Yeah, like sometimes we'd go shopping together and I'd like put something in the cart and he's like, you want that or you want me in your life?
Hey, right?
Or do you want to make room for me? Or, and I was like,
yeah,
that
you want to
makes
make room
me
for
look at things a
you,
little
right?
differently, you know?
So you want to prioritize, because clearly you got 6 closets and they all need to be gone through, but they don't all need to be gone through before he moves in.
Right.
The 2 that you should worry about are the 2 that are in your bedroom, so that he can move his clothes into the bedroom. That's the most important thing. And so you want to go through both of them looking to make space, and you want to hang up in the bigger closet the new stuff on the floor that presumably you like better and is more current and fits better and yada yada yada, right? So get those in, and then keep pulling out until what's left in the other closet can jump, until it's not. And and if you have to do it in stages because it's a big project, that's cool. I mean, ultimately you're going to make passes, and you're not going to be able to do it all in one sitting. There's no way.
Yeah.
So you just need to go, okay, Mom, come help me for 2 hours, and we're going to subtract from the small closet. and just keep, you'll just keep collapsing the small closet until ultimately you're down to the stuff that you want and it can move over. And then when that closet is empty, you can take a pause and go, woohoo, rock and roll, and he can move in and you can stop for a while. And then you'll be able to go back into your, now I'm sure what's going to be a full closet, and weed that one down slowly over time. But you just want to be able to make enough room in the bigger closet to add the bags in off the floor and to take what you have to have from the other closet over. And then post move in and adjustment and all that, you can go to the other closets one at a time and filter. Yeah. As long as they're not getting in the way. The daughter's not living with y'all, the daughter just visits, right? So how old is she?
13.
So she needs a little, a weekend's worth or a week's worth of clothing space, which is like any guest closet, you gotta have a foot or two to hang stuff in.
Yeah.
You can make that happen. One closet, 1 foot, big deal, right? But you can go to those other closets as projects over time.
They're small, yeah, so we'll get a time. It's the
Right.
the bigger ones that.
Yeah. Well, just
feels
think of it as it's between now and when he's gonna move in.
But I do have,
You have
there
2
is a
months.
deadline. Because the relationship before was a very long relationship, but it wasn't as, it just kind of dragged on and on and on. And so I
Yeah.
could drag on that issue on and on, so
Yeah.
this one, more
Deadlines are good.
Yeah,
So
deadlines are good, it's more motivating.
I'm much more motivated and the progress more supported too, so.
Yeah. Well, and he's being smart about it because yelling at you isn't going to solve the problem. And he's putting out something very clear. Do you want me to have space in your life or do you want the dress? Well, he wins on that argument every time, right? Like that's, great motivation.
So
And-
I have an issue I'm working on, he has an issue he's working on, and we're both
Awesome.
supportive of each other, and that,
And when's the deadline? You said 2 months?
it's like end of June,
Oh.
July 3rd technically, so end of June.
So get out your calendar. And here's March,
4 months,
April,
4 months.
May, right? You got 3 months. Get out those calendars and book appointments for an hour, 2 hours. Could you do 2 hours without losing your mind? And get either your mother or your friend to come over and book those on the count. Like you're going to work during the week,
Like my
right?
mom's coming over Saturday.
Yeah. So go book out all the Saturdays between now and then. And if you get finished early, great. You can be done. But you want to go and claim 2 hours every Saturday between now and the end of May. And know that that's your window to get done. And then you have, 8. You've got 24 hours to make it happen. And if you have a person there with you every time, that's really 48 man hours. So you got plenty of time to do this and not do it in a way that you find seriously aggravating or distressing, right? Like you don't want to try to get it all done up front and then get overwhelmed and shut down. So you just want to chip away and whatever way you want to subset it, I'm going to do these 2 feet. I'm going to go find the easy stuff that I don't have to think hard about. I'm going to, concentrate on shoes today. I mean, however you want to chunk it. And just know you're going to set the timer. When the 2 hours is up, y'all go to, have margaritas. It's time for Mexican food, right? Like everybody does a happy dance and you go out to eat or something. Yes, ma'am.
I was just gonna say, one thing that I found really motivating was, I belong to a group and we were working with this place called Angela House, and it's for women who have just gotten out of jail. And they literally come there with
With nothing.
the clothes on their backs. So we went down and visited and had a little, like
Tour.
a workshop with them and a tour and everything. And there was a woman there who said, literally, I wear a size 11 shoe, and she didn't have any shoes because they get donations, but 11s are not as common. So man, I went home and I went through my closet. I was like, every pair of shoes that I wasn't wearing, I took. So I think when you know that somebody really needs what you have, it's like it feels great.
Yeah.
And that's what I do with my piano too. Like, it's so hard to get rid of my piano, but I gave it to an organization where they were going to just take it to the next family who had like 3 little children who wanted to learn to play the piano. And I was like, you know, it made it so easy to give, to gift it, you know,
And
because
maybe that's
because I
something you
knew
can do,
somebody was really gonna benefit.
right?
So,
If you go tour the women's shelter, or you go find
Or
a
Dress for
place where you
Success.
can take the
I've done some
clothes,
work with
Yeah.
them,
yeah.
you know, then you can give it away and know that it's going someplace specific that has a purpose. It might make it easier. Anything that makes that ability to release less painful for you is good. And sometimes you have to go and do the tour and do the site visit to see the people, and then you can have that person in your head. I mean, I tell people to do that with their little kids, you know, when they're trying to get their little kids to get rid of toys in advance of the next onslaught of Christmas and birthday. You know, take the kids down to the shelter and let them see the little kids. It's like, okay, these little kids don't have any presents. It makes it real for them, and it can make it real for you too, and give you a little bit more comfort in terms of giving it away. Part of why I'm so supportive of Texas Art Asylum is because I've been down to the teacher sales, and the teachers that come to Texas Art Asylum to buy supplies for $5 a bag have budgets of like $10 for the year for all their students, or they can't do craft project with the elementary school kids that involve egg cartons because they can't guarantee the kids have eggs at home. So, you know, there's people that can benefit from your largesse, and it will really make their life be better. And seeing that in real life and in real person, you know, standing there and looking at that person like you did. There's a woman, she's size 11, she has no shoes. I mean, there's nothing more motivating than knowing for sure that somebody needs it. And so do a little tour somewhere that gives you a little support. And if you need to, go inoculate yourself as you go along, right? You've got 3 months to fill. If you start getting tired or fatigued about it, go see someplace again and be reminded, oh yeah, these people really don't have anything like I have. And maybe it'll be helpful. Thank you for that story. That was very helpful. Does anybody else have questions?
Talking about the Texas Art Asylum and egg cartons, do they collect other like teachers? Do they like toilet paper rolls, like styrofoam cups?
They have a whole list on their website.
They do.
I've seen that list, but I don't see the one where it's literally throwaway stuff, like egg
You can call and
cartons.
ask them about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they do. If you have they don't want one toilet paper roll.
Right.
But if you have a collection, I mean, you know, because every teacher has 20 or 30 kids, right? So it doesn't do them any good to get two. But if you have a collection of something, then it's useful.
Or like those detergent jugs, they make animals out of them. I mean, you turn this way and it's a pig because the
But so ask that question, right? Like, I would call and ask them to find out if they're getting a whole bunch of it.
The lid is the snout. And then,
Yeah.
I don't know, they're
Yeah.
creative. They are so creative.
But they, you know, they know what their requests are for, because you can't imagine what it's like on that day. I mean, the teachers line up down the street outside that place to get
The third
in.
Saturday.
Where are they located?
It's on Live Oak, which is basically downtown, east of downtown a little bit. And they do the sale once a month.
Third
And the
Saturday.
people just line up outside. And you know, anybody that has an actual teacher's budget can't be bothered to go in there. The people that are going in there are people that have nothing to work with at all. And they're looking for ways to be kind to their students and help them and teach them and give them things to do. And you know, it's a great marrying of a real big need and a bunch of leftover gras-du that nobody wants anymore. It's really amazing. But it speaks to the point of, you need the motivation, you need the support, you need the visual to help you know that you're doing something good, even though it's painful for you.
I am taking things to Goodwill, and I'm taking things to Bluebird, which goes to a good cause, but then I
Yeah.
recoup some money. And
Yeah,
I'm
a
taking
little
things
bit.
to some consignment shops, but I just have so much volume.
Yeah,
That's
and they all have limits. You can only take you can only take 6 things of clothes, you can only take 2 shoes, you can, you want to spend all your good money, your expensive stuff on that process. Yes, ma'am.
There's still people that have gone through Harvard still need
Yeah.
clothes and shoes and everything.
Yeah, I was just listening to NPR and they said there's still 3,500 people living in hotels 6 months later. Waiting for housing, trying to, get it back into their homes, trying to find alternate housing because their house is, destroyed or whatever. And shocking to me that it's still true, but it is. So there's need out there. We just have to find you one that makes you feel good, whatever that is, right? Okay, if you guys have any more questions, thank you so much for coming and listening to me today. I appreciate it, and I will see you guys soon.